Hey America. Well, it's a new year, and that means a new wave of progressive lies. So let's tackle one lie that I still keep hearing being repeated amongst my millennial peers, and that's the myth about the glorious socialist European countries. They have free healthcare, free college, free welfare,
Free everything!
Now to clarify, the supposed socialist paradise countries in question are mostly centered in Scandinavia, as these countries were go-to places for Bernie Sanders and his campaign messaging. The 2016 election has had some really damaging effects on my generation, and it's not like we're already fucked up. Bernie Sanders in particular has twisted the minds of many young voters into thinking that they deserve all sorts of free stuff from the government and that we should tax the shit out of rich people, all under the guise of equality. Bernie, you need to go back to the old folks' home. You're senile and confused. The Bolshevik Revolution was 100 years ago, comrade! So let's just go through this point by point. If you were to ask Bernie Sanders how his socialism is different from the socialism that has killed at least 100 million people, by people who say that they are socialists, he'd say,
Well, look at Sweden, the Scandinavians, they're excellent socialist countries.
Well, if we're taking socialism to its core definition, the idea that the people own the means of production, that doesn't really apply to Scandinavia. See, unlike an actual socialist country, the Scandinavian countries run on what's called the Nordic model, which is essentially a mix of free market capitalism and a whole lot of welfare. It actually runs on a system of economics that's considerably freer than what we have in America. See, unlike America, the Scandinavian countries actually don't tax the living shit out of their corporations, nor do they impose regulation after regulation on them. And this is part of the reason why the Scandinavian countries always seem to make the top 10 list of countries that are most friendly to businesses. All of this is completely antithetical to Bernie's idea of raising corporate tax rates. The guy despises the free market. He despises capitalism. This, right here, is not socialism. Now, where Scandinavia does fall more in line with socialism is with its extensive welfare programs. You've got free healthcare, a large social security net, and a whole bunch of stuff provided by the government. But this is also where Bernie's idea of socialism gets confused with the proper role of government. See, socialists like to claim that anything that the government provides is socialism. The military is socialism, the justice system is socialism, the postal service is socialism. What these people don't understand, and in particular with our law of the land, is that the role of our federal government, as per the Constitution, is to provide security for its citizens through a military, a police force, and to ensure that the people living within the country are not being screwed over or treated unfairly with a fair and balanced justice system. What our government is doing now, with the massive role it has taken up in the lives of all Americans, is so beyond the purview of its original intentions. The government is not meant to be doing all the things that it is currently doing. It is not supposed to provide you healthcare. It's not supposed to ensure that you have some sort of social security, or run the country's education system, or give you free college. The role of the government is to establish a safe and fair playground for us to run around in and conduct our own business. That's it. That is the role of the federal government through our Constitution. And anything that is not strictly given to the federal government is given over to the state and local municipalities to deal with. This is where you get your public services from, if your individual state wants to enact those kinds of services. This is the whole point of a decentralized government, and something that socialists do not understand because they are in favor of an all-powerful government, because that is the only way that they can get control over businesses, the economy, and your own livelihood. But going back to the Scandinavian welfare programs, you know how they pay for all that? It's not through taxing the corporations, it's through taxing you. The individual tax rates in these countries are so unbelievably high, it's astounding. In Sweden, the top marginal tax rate is 56.9%. In Denmark, it's 60.4%. And this doesn't just apply to the super high income rich people. If you make over $60,000 a year, you're going to pay 60.4% of that to the federal government. If you even tried this in America, you're done. It's not happening. People will flee the country or just stop working altogether and live off their savings. It's not happening. So is this a good model for a prosperous economic system? No, it's not. See, you can only go on with this type of system for so long until it starts to bankrupt your country. As nice as it sounds for the government to provide you with free stuff, someone's got to pay for it. And that money's not going to come from nowhere. It's going to come from the government forcing it out of your pockets. These socialist programs are bankrupting these countries so much that in recent years, many of these countries have had to slash their budgets, and many of them have even begun to see a rise in right-wing individuals being elected into public offices. So Scandinavia might be seeing some kind of economic reforms in the near future. And one of the main reasons why Scandinavians have been able to keep up with this system for so long is because of America. These countries have not had to foot their own defense bills in generations. We are paying for their defense. You know what happens if we didn't? They'd actually have to start investing in their own military, and fast, because Russia is there, and it's waiting. And these guys are first on the list of a Russian takeover. They're not going to be able to pay for their own military if they're still pumping money into their welfare programs. So that's it. These countries are not the socialist paradise that Bernie has promised you. What he has promised you is some cherry-picked data points mixed in with a lot of ignorance and obfuscation. I'm sorry guys, we have not found the promised land yet. And if you don't want to take it from me, take it from the Prime Minister of Denmark, who had to come out a year ago and make this statement. I know that some people in the US associate the Nordic model with some sort of socialism. Therefore, I would like to make one thing clear. Denmark is far from a socialist planned economy. Denmark is a market economy. But despite all this, my generation of turquoise-haired bitches and vagina-hat enthusiasts will probably still protest and demand free stuff. We want free stuff! Free stuff? Well, where are you gonna get it? We'll just tax the rich! Eat the rich! Eat the rich! And what happens if the rich people leave? Huh? What happens if the rich people leave? Why would they leave, man? Because you're taxing the shit out of them. Why would they stick around for that? Then what? Then who do you tax? Then what happens to your Ponzi scheme? You're just racist! So when Bernie says that he's all for the people and equality and all that stuff, he really just wants to tax the shit out of you. Then we can all suffer equally. And isn't that just the dream? But despite socialism being one of the worst socioeconomic systems to ever exist, Bernie and his messaging has done significant amounts of damage to my generation, and has convinced many of them that they inherently deserve something from the universe. That if they exist, then you owe them some free shit. He's done his damage. But if millennials and progressives really want to live in their socialist fantasy, then I'd advise they book a ticket over to Venezuela. I hear the stray dogs and zoo animals are just delicious this time of year.